control of your life. Break the chains and rise. No more feeling powerless, no more shame. Take your power, break out of the pain. Because it's more than fornication, more than procreation. It's not just self-stimulation. Sex energy is for creation and transformation into a new destination. Porn Talk. Yeah. Change your heart from dark to light. Porn Talk. Yeah. Break free. Take back your power and rise. I said take back your power. I said take back your power. Take back your power and rise.
This is Porn Talk. This is Porn Talk Live. Here is your host, Eric Zuzak.
Welcome to Porn Talk. This show is not just about breaking addictions. It's about breaking belief systems. We are bound by self-imposed and societal chains. Break those rusty, heavy, nasty old chains. Get empowered right now. We've got another awesome chain breaker with us today. He is a former compulsive user of porn and now helps other with his organization. He's a co-founder of BeInTouch. BeInTouch works with schools, families, and brands to provide practical solution to the rising tide of technology misuse, causing significant mental health challenges to young people. Help me welcome the person that says you have more power than you think, Josh Ramsey. Welcome, Josh.
Hey, Eric, great to be here. Thanks, man.
Thank you. Thank you. So, Josh, tell us, what's your story?
You know, it's the story of, I think, so many that haven't spoken about it, right? I think that's an important piece just to open with, is that so many people are struggling with porn, with technology misuse. So my story is that it started at age 9. I was exposed at a friend's house, and I went on to use pornography compulsively to manage my emotions, to deal with the stresses of life until my late 20s. So that's almost 20 years of use. And it had a devastating impact on me, on my relationships, on my boundaries, on my understanding of dealing with negative emotions, stress in general. It led me into all sorts of other addictions. And it caused a lot of chaos. And I think, you know, your opening song talking about breaking shame, breaking chambers of isolation, yeah, that's my story. And I think that's so many men's story and young people's stories. And that's why we got to do more about it. And it's great to be here to help you do that, because you're doing a great job.
Thank you. And it really is an epidemic. It's, you know, I have children reach out to me for help. I mean, it's really sad. So tell me, what was one of the low points of, because it, you know, has devastating impact on people's lives, on my life, on your life. What was one of the low points of the addiction?
Yeah, I think you know, addiction is characterized by chaos, and I mean, there's so many low points in a storm of chaos, and I think that's an important piece to look at, because it's also relative, right? Because the societal benchmarks are all broken, right? So I might tell you my story, and you can relate to the devastating impact of being chained to something, knowing that it's not good for you, and doing it anyway. And I might give that same story to someone else, like I did to one of my mentors, and he was like, I don't see the problem in that. I don't see why you're getting all worked up about this thing. It's not actually an issue. So, I think I'm happy to share, because you listening right now, you might go like, is this really such a thing? And my parents making a big deal of it, or my wife is making a big deal of it, or my husband is making a big deal of it. And maybe coming here, you get that little realization of, actually, this is broken and I didn't even know it. So I think that was, I would say my deepest down around my compulsive use of pornography, and was when I finally started to realize the impact it was having on those that I loved. When I actually saw it for what it was, then I could, I'd been in chaos of like, I was, because as I said, my addiction to pornography and using a digital substance to feel better led me to like, well, alcohol makes me feel great, weed makes me feel great, so I can use those. Those landed me in very like obviously chaotic moments, like getting locked up by the police, or arriving somewhere stoned that I had no, realizing like this is not the time to be stoned, and having a kind of an experience of, well, this is not good. But really being in relationship with others and seeing what how my decisions were impacting them, that was a harder low for me, and was more catalyzing of change than any self-harm that I was doing. And I think that ties in with why addicts do what they do, is that they don't know that they're harming themselves, because they don't know any better. And they don't have anyone that they're responsible to or in relationship with that can go like, this hurts not only you, it's not good, there's something else. So I mean, that's a convoluted answer, but yeah, it was plenty of lows, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, you mentioned going to jail, marijuana,
Mhm.
and in your TED Talk, Josh has an awesome TED Talk. I encourage you to check it out. It's called "You Have More Power Than You Think,"
Mhm.
and in that TED Talk, you use I I still like that. We talked about this before we started, but I do like the how do you say it?
Hy-
HSDM?
hy- Hyper stimulating digital media. It's the kind of not safe for work NS, or what's that acronym? You can talk about this kind of thing, because pornography just falls into a category of hyper stimulating digital media. It could be gory, hackfest movies. It could be it's not quite the same, but like a rom-com that leaves you in tears, for hours. Like, it's stimulating, right? It's giving you a state shift, an emotional state shift, and you're not having to work for it, because our bodies don't know, right? We bring in stuff through the open part of our brain. Our eyes are just this open neural endings of our brain. So anything we see and hear, it just goes straight in, and it's perceived as real. So whether that's all of the dopamine and stuff that hits you when you're watching porn, or a violent film, or you're gaming excessively, or you're
YouTube.
consuming like a horror movie, or YouTube, yeah, the TikTok death scroll, it's all just get me away from me,
Yeah.
get me away from me, and that steals from us. I can get away from the me that wants to die. Like, there's an old me that wants to leave. Like, I'm sick and tired of the Josh that stays up till 4 a.m. watching, let's call it HSDM. It could be porn. It could be TikTok death scrolling. I hate that guy. I hate waking up tired. I hate not showing up at my job. I hate lying to my family about why I'm down, or why I didn't show up, or why I couldn't, or why I did it, all of the crap that we cover, this self that we're trying to kill off, but we just don't have the tools to like leave it behind
Yeah.
and move into, as you say, the creative potential. The metaphor of sexual energy obviously is something we could get into as well, but yeah, it's huge. It's huge. And it's just so ubiquitous that people don't even see it as, I mean, binging is like a thing. It's like, what do you binge? You know, it's just
Exactly.
common societal language. Like, what do you binge?
Yeah. I like what you said, the TikTok death scroll,
Oh
because
man.
for my business, I created a TikTok account, and
Hmm.
oh my gosh, like wow, like it is the TikTok death scroll. And I
Yeah.
think because of the title of my show and all that, there's just jiggly content, just jiggly
Oh
content
man.
up, like, and
Yeah.
it is the TikTok death scroll. That is a great description.
Yeah. I would, you know, what eventually got me to really change my appetites, which is a very different approach to what we can call abstinence or sobriety. You know, because I'm sure we mentioned just before we jumped on that you, like me, had spent some time in the 12-step circles, and you know, the old guy in the corner that's white knuckling it, and he's been doing it for 20 years. Looks like he's about to pick up a bottle of whiskey. Like, he's
Yeah.
on the edge. He's just like, I've been sober for 20 years. And it's like, dude, you don't look okay. Like, I don't know if this sobriety is a good thing for you. But but you know, the difference between that and somehow miraculously our appetites changing. And what kind of got me thinking on that was you talking about going back into jiggly spaces, because that's just, you know, I'm so like averse to what I would, you know, we have neural pathways. I'm trying to kill off the neural pathways. And obviously sights and smells are stimulating, and it's just electricity. It doesn't have a choice. It just follows where the least resistance is in our brain. And if I've had 1,000 orgasms looking at a certain image, and then something snapshots at that, it's a well-worn pathway. So personally, like, I could never do what you do and kind of go behind enemy lines, because someone's got to be there
Oh,
to
that's
get.
great.
Oh, dude, you're totally behind
Yeah,
enemy
I didn't
lines, man.
realize. I love that. Oh,
You're like paratrooping far into the Third Reich with your bandana and your green beret knife in your mouth. You're like, we're gonna find the guys that are struggling with porn. We're gonna bring them back. And like, don't go, Eric. You're gonna die out there. There's
oh,
jiggly buns everywhere.
oh my God, that's awesome. Oh, that's priceless. That's priceless. Yeah, it is. It's hard. It's hard, but, you know,
Yeah.
to find the guys that are struggling. I feel like that's what I need to do. Wow.
Yeah.
Great analogy.
Yeah,
Great.
and so in my life, it's about seeing the temptation from a mile away, a million miles away. So if you're still in the place in your journey with controlling this beast that's trying to control you, that it has to be right there in front of your face for you to go like, oh, this is not okay. You need to think back. Like, there's layers to your safety, right? For me now, like, I love it that I just turn my head. I've got like impulse control. My eyes close, my hands cover things. Like, I just not interested, man. I'm not interested in going back. And I hope more people focus on that goal, as opposed to like, I didn't do it for 2 weeks, or I didn't do it for a month, or I didn't do it for a year. It's like, there's so much more than that once this no longer is defining you.
I love that. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Because the counting days thing was counterproductive for me in 12 steps. They're
Yeah.
hyper focusing on, okay, made it a week. I made it 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I get a month. I get a coin.
Yeah.
And what I tell guys, like, if you're going to count days, then if you go 10 days and you slip off, then the next day you get back on, then that's day 11. Like, you keep counting,
Yeah.
because you slip
Yeah.
or relapse doesn't negate all all the positive
Yeah.
days, successful
Well,
days you had.
I mean, the great irony of the kind of reward thinking that you're talking about in the 12 step is it's still outcome based behavior, which is exactly what pornography consumption is. It's, I want an outcome. What's the outcome? I don't want to feel how I feel. I feel bored. I feel sad. I feel mad. I feel bad. I want to feel something else. Orgasms feel good. Great. Let me use some porn. Let me use some gaming. I want to feel different. It's an outcome. It's not a process. And sobriety or abstinence or connection, just call it that. I mean, I like Gabor Mate's, the opposite of addiction is not sobriety, it's connection. It's a process. It's a lifestyle of process. So if you're going like, until I get that 10 coin, until I get that 100 coin, what happens when you get it? It's the same thing happens in careers. Like if you look at mindset coaching, and I know you're a sales guy, so you know this is like, if you hunt that sale for 3 months and then the worst thing is that you get it, because the next day you're not going to go to work the next day, and then you binge your money for 2 weeks, and then you go, oh crap, now I got to do something again. versus the guy that just gets up, and every day is a new day, and I want to be my best today, and I'm going to keep trying. And if I fall off, what do I do when I fall off? I get back up, and I'm just 1% better every day, as opposed to like, I've hit this pinnacle of sobriety or this and that. So yeah, I'm in the same boat as you. Like, it's all about the process.
I just love what you're talking about here. And earlier you had mentioned the guy that was white knuckling it for years, that's in the corner.
Mhm.
He doesn't look very healthy.
Doesn't look great.
Yeah, it's like, man, I will never forget my first 12-step meeting. It was absolutely awful. Why I continue to go back is because my guy said I had to go to 12-step meetings.
Mhm.
And there, in the room was a convicted pedophile. Now, I was addicted to porn, but it wasn't that. And it's like, really, like, this is the club I'm in now. Like, I'm in the club
Yeah.
with convicted pedophiles, and like, it was awful. And there was guys crying in the meeting, and not that there's anything wrong with crying. I encourage you to cry, but and actually it was bad. And the guys that were the very few that were sober, it just didn't appear healthy to me. This hyper focusing on not doing something, and my thing is about bringing something positive into your life and counting that. For example, if you're going to count something, count how many days in a row you exercise, or you do yoga, or you read a book or something like that, rather than hyper focusing on not doing something.
Yeah. I think at the end of the day, regardless of what room you're in and who's in the room, you're all in there as individuals in a process. And for myself, I can relate to that. I can relate to sitting in the room and being like, this guy's talking about cruising the streets at 3 a.m. high on coke, looking for a hooker. Like, this is not me. Like, actually I went back to my version of your guy, my addiction counselor. And I was like, dude, come on, man. This is, I watch a bit of porn. Like, there's this guy and he's cruising the streets and he's so bad. And my addiction counselor said to me, what he said was, but this is the thing, Josh, you've got no idea what a sober life looks like. You don't know what it's like. Again, we're back to that like lack of awareness, lack of like normal, because I'm so, I grew up, there's addiction behavior in my family line. So it's a normalized component of life. And he's like, you're comparing yourself to the guy in the gutter. You're not comparing yourself to the dad of 3 who has, 1 bottle of wine over a month, sipping on it, and, what sees a bikini in a movie and is like, well, that's pretty risque or whatever. There's that guy exists whose family line has not been impacted by compulsive behavior, whether it's coke or sex or alcohol, whatever. And so for me, like you, I was like, this is not my people. This is not my tribe. It did give me a little bit of a wake up of like, hold on, there is a spectrum here, and I'm on it. I might not think I'm there, but I'm on it somewhere, and there's a movement that I can make. And it's, again, like we discussed, it's not the kind of movement that I want to make like old Jim in the corner with his 20 years of white knuckling, but by the grace of God. And I will mention that because that's inherent to my story of recovery was my spirituality. And so yeah, it's important to know that we all have a spectrum to move along.
Yeah. And I love that you brought that up, that there is a spectrum. You could say the spectrum could start at maybe not even maybe just advertising. I remember when I was a kid, there was these women's catalogs, and there's women in bras, like that, stuff like that. Could be at the one end of the spectrum. And the middle of the spectrum could be maybe you can't stop watching just regular porn, and then the far end of the spectrum would be the convicted pedophile.
Yeah.
And so there is this very large spectrum. But here's the thing that I like to bring up is that really wherever you are on the spectrum, the question is, how is it impacting your life? Like if it's relatively comparatively mild, let's just say, I don't know, somebody's watching porn for half hour once a week, but it is really negatively impacting their self-esteem. They feel so terrible, so bad about themselves. It's impacting instead of having sex with their wife, they're using porn, that day. So the question is, how is it impacting your life? And for me, it was hugely impacting my life. My thing was the guilt and shame. It was so hard to live with that guilt and shame all the time. And it was also impacting my relationships too, and my work, because at the time, as a salesperson, when I should be prospecting, I was masturbating, so that directly affects your income. And also, many times, instead of having sex with my wife, I was using porn. And then, of course, the biggest one really for me was this a massive toll it was taking on my self-esteem. Can you relate to that?
Yeah, I think there's two pieces there, and the one we might disagree, because though there is this spectrum that people can move across, I think to hold ourselves to an arbitrary line in the sand on that spectrum it didn't work for me, and I'm not sure that it is not only a useful strategy, but it's like, how good could you be? How impactful could you be? How great of a piano player could you be? If you play an hour a week and you practice an hour a week, you're going to be a certain level of good. If you practice 100 hours a week, that's a different. So I don't want to have anyone listening right now go, yeah, okay, well, it's not that bad for me. I don't have to feel bad about this. Like if you're listening, then chances are that there's more for you. That there's a different option. And I don't want you to go away thinking like, well, I'm not that convicted pedophile and I'm not watching anything that's illegal. Whereas I'm saying, like, that guilt, that shame that you feel, that conviction that's in your heart, that's what's guiding your drive to change. And obviously, if it's your wife, if it's your job, those are like very overt, objective reality kind of markers that are saying you need to change. But which is where I sat, was that I was going through this Manning program, very hardcore, like process work, or whatever you want to call it, and part of an organization, and going to meetings, and all about being an accountable, integrous man and responsible man. And when I went to one of the full leaders with like, hey, I watched this porn and I don't like how I feel guilty, I feel shameful, I feel like it's not healthy, I feel like it's not respectful to women, I feel like it's an industry I don't want to support. And he was just turned around and he was like, there's nothing wrong with it. What kind of porn do you like? Like, I like this kind of porn. And it was in this moment I was like, you've got nothing for me. Like, outside of this conviction that I feel in my heart, I think that was also scary to me. Is when I started to seeing that my conscience was becoming seared, like with enough willful destruction of that little voice in our hearts that says this is not good, this is not okay. You can become impervious to it. Like that voice can go away, and that's what scared me. And that's what I believe is how you end up at that pedophile stage of things, is that you've so suffocated that voice inside you, that you're now doing these things that are so overtly not okay. And so that was part of my reason of really diving into the Bible, in fact, because I found that to be such an incredible food for my conscience. The standards are just on a whole different level. And Jesus talks about, like, if you look lustfully at a woman, you've committed adultery, right? So it's bringing my temptation front and center. It's not like, oh, you didn't watch porn this week, so you're actually fine. It was actually that was the line that got me bust with the woman who became my wife. I said to her, I was like, hey, I was like feeling top of the world. It's like, hey, I haven't watched porn in like a week. She's like, you watch porn? Right? And then that was one of the catalysts of like, hold on. This is not, there's a whole horizon that I haven't even looked at that doesn't include watching porn or using substances to manage my feelings. And that's what catalyzed, the whole recovery journey for me, was that waking up.
The word that comes to my mind when you were just talking now is the word numb. That we've consumed so much of this junk that we're just numb to it.
Yeah.
And that's a scary place to be. And with your wife realizing, oh, you watch porn, like that's not cool, right?
Yeah. Like what? But everyone does. We're all numb together. That's also scary. As a society, we're numb. I mean, just look at the content that our children are watching. I was 9, and now I've spoken. We at BeInTouch, we surveyed a bunch of children in the school talks, over 3,000 now, and 25% by age 9 now. 25% of kids have seen pornography, and that's in South Africa. But those statistics are not very different to what we see in the States and other places. By the age of 13, it's 80%.
And and I suspect that those numbers actually are much higher because there are, even though it's an anonymous survey, there's still some that are gonna be like, I'm not gonna put that I watched that.
Yeah.
And it's frightening. It's frightening. But you, though, are one of the few bold ones that chose to not only improve yourself, but to help others and speak. And you did your TED Talk, has been seen by God only knows how many people now, and you help schools, organizations, and so I'm excited to learn more about what you're doing to help the world. For this part of the episode today, we're going to need to wrap up here, but we're going to have Josh back on the next episode, and he's going to talk about some of the positive things that you can do and that he's doing to help schools, organizations, young people to overcome this challenge. So, Josh, thanks for being with us on this episode. We'll look forward to having you back on the next episode, and we will wrap up here today.
Thanks for listening. If you're struggling with porn or sex addiction, reach out to Eric at powerfuleric.com.
All right, so that's episode 1. Episode 2. Let's see. Let's go. All right, episode 2.
Thanks for listening.
Oops,
If you're
wrong one.
struggling with porn or sex addiction,
Wrong one.
reach out to Eric at powerfuleric.com.
Let's see.
This is Porn Talk Live. Here is your host, Eric Zuzak.
Welcome back to Porn Talk. This is Powerful Eric. We are back with Josh Ramsey. He is the co-founder of BeInTouch. It's an organization that helps young people and organizations overcome the devastating impact of not just pornography, but on digital addiction, digital challenges. So we're going to get right back to it. Welcome back, Josh.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. Looking forward to getting into the positive after intervention space, which is exciting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
In the last episode, we talked about more of the problems, challenges with digital addictions. Well, let's talk about solutions. So first of all, how did you, and just in a brief nutshell, Josh was addicted himself, but now he helps others with his organization, co-founder of BeInTouch. How did that develop? And tell us more about that.
Yeah, for sure. I think, for anyone that is struggling right now, especially for parents that their kids are struggling, it's I love that saying that says that addicts do the wrong thing for the right reason. That they're trying to find a solution. They're trying to find a different way of being because they have something that is calling out for attention inside themselves, and they don't have the skills to deal with it. So I think the opportunity that sits in front of us all, like that sat in front of me, I was exposed to pornography very young, didn't develop the skills of problem solving. I learned the skills of problem avoidance, and that is what pornography is. That's what technology misuse is. I want to hit the pause button.
Can you say that again?
It's a skill set of problem avoidance and not problem solving, right? And I got very good at problem avoidance. So it started with porn, then it became weed, and then it became alcohol altogether. And I just got very good at pressing pause on any problem. It's like, problem pops up. Oh, hold on. Let me go and feel something else. And oh yeah, you're still here when I get back. Oh, okay. I'll just stay over there. And obviously, as you know, you can't stay over there. Law of diminishing returns means we need more, do more, smoke more, watch more, drink more, and that eventually drives us into our break point, our in the gutter moment. And I think that's the opportunity, right? Is that there's an opportunity today for families to be closer than they've ever been, because they're going to need to be, to deal with the onslaught of content and stranger danger and sextortion and all the stuff that's happening to our kids, to even our professional moms and dads. We're just being called up to deal with it. It's when the going gets tough that we got to come together as families, as individuals, and really step into a higher level of awareness around our actions and what we're doing. So that's what we try and do at BeInTouch. We got resources and webinars, and we've done some good work with brands that care to propagate this content, this awareness, break taboos, as you're saying. And that's the work we've been doing for a number of years. And we've had some great wins, but it's like holding back a dam wall, of a wall of water. Just, you can't save all the starfish. Sorry, so many metaphors in there.
No, that's great. But
Yeah.
and the starfish metaphor is a great metaphor. And just for those that haven't heard it, there's a guy walking down the beach with his son, and there's all these thousands of starfish that have washed up on the ocean, on the beach, and they're dying. And this kid is picking them up and throwing them back one by one. And the father says, "What are you doing?" He's like, "I'm saving this starfish." And he's like, there's thousands of them. You can't possibly save them all." And he picks one up and he throws it in, and he says, "Well, help that one." And
Yeah.
so, yeah, there's this massive wall of water or whatever that we're heating back, but you're doing that, and it's more than just one starfish. So
Yeah.
kudos, man. Like, nice work.
Yeah, and to you, man, it's great to see you taking it to a whole different level of, as we were joking in the last episode, of you going behind enemy lines and just using the content machine against this beast that's trying to eat us all up. So yeah, kudos to you as well. So yeah, I think it's important. I've got a call tomorrow night with a young person. I no longer as involved as I was in BeInTouch because my career has taken me into marketing, and I now kind of do that full time, and I do this part time as my schedule now allows. Um, and which has been freeing as well, because it means that we get to give this away for free, which is what it needs to be. Because currently, any friction, any resistance, any reason that anyone has not to engage with this, whether it's parents, paywall, or whatever it is, it just seems to be a bridge too far. It's still so astounding to me, having been in this area of concern for so many years, that I still talk to parents and they're just like, not my kid. My kid would never. Not my kid. Not my husband. Not my pastor. Not my. It's
Clueless.
yeah. And we don't want to know. Like, life's already hard enough. Now you got to say, well, all those hard things that you're dealing with over here is this all other hard thing that you got to deal with, and these really awkward, uncomfortable conversations that you got to have with your son, your father, your friend, your wife, your boss, your whatever. And it can easily become head in the sand approach. And I guess I just want to encourage everyone that there's such incredible views when you take your head out of the sand and you get above the clouds, and it doesn't get easier. You're still in it all the time. We're still in the culture. We still have to deal with all the things that we have to deal with. But yeah, it's incredibly freeing to see what we can create when we're not trying to run from ourselves and how we feel and problems. Like when we get good at solving problems, right? That's what we want for our kids. We want them to be good at solving problems, not good at avoiding problems. And the only way you get good at solving problems is by hitting them one after the other. So yeah, that's what we try and do at BeInTouch.
That's awesome. It does feel, talking about the solutions, it feels so good to not have that ball and chain addiction
Yeah.
around my ankles. It just
Yeah.
feels so freeing and liberating, and
Yeah.
not living with that guilt and shame all the time just feels so good.
Yeah. And it's indescribable to someone that's never experienced it, because when we are trained in our addiction brain, joy is the same as ecstasy, is the same as orgasm, is the same as pleasure, is the same as it's just all bundled together. Like, I don't think I ever experienced peace, real true peace of like, I've got nothing to hide. I don't have to snatch my phone away from you. I don't have to turn the browser. I don't have to think about that stash. I don't have to, want that joint that I know is somewhere in this party, or I don't have to, where's the next beer? Just like, I'm okay. Just okay. Just being here without those things. And yeah, I mean, finding that and losing that, because it's hard to hold on to as well, but at least having experienced it, like, there is more. There is peace for you listening right now. There is a you that isn't thinking about porn while you talk to your mom, that isn't thinking about a joint when you at your kids' baseball, that isn't thinking about the drink you're going to have after work and you only got 5 more hours to get to it. There is a version of you that is free from those chains.
There is a version of you that is free from those chains. And the clients that I work with, I have them come up with what I call their power name. And that is the best version of themselves. And if somebody's been a listener for a long time, they've heard this, but the story is there was this is a true story. these monks created this giant golden Buddha. You can call it the giant Christ, but the real story, it was a golden Buddha. And they knew this invading army was coming, so they disguised the Buddha to look, they covered it in clay or they buried it in mud, whatever. And the invading army did come. Their plan did work. They did not find the golden Buddha, but they killed everyone that was there. So the Buddha remained there for a couple hundred years, and there was a new set of monks in this monastery, and they noticed a glimmer of it was a bright sunshiny day, and they noticed a little glimmer of light, speck in the mud, and they unearthed this massive golden Buddha, or you could say this massive golden Christ, and that is us. That's what our in us. We are born like that. We're born with all this incredible skills, abilities, that this an awesome person, but we get buried in problems and addictions and challenges, and we forget who that person is. And so I encourage people to come up with their power name. Mine just happened to just was Powerful Eric. That's what came up. And it's the best version of yourself. And when you are not buried in addiction, not buried in guilt and shame, it's so good to let that person shine. You know that, I don't know if you've ever heard this song, "This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine."
This little light of mine, yeah, for sure, man. I can't remember that. I think, the image that you painted and the metaphor there is it's a bit different to the perspective I have, in that my identity, you've got that idea of us being born as that golden version of ourselves. And I just found that when I focused on myself, when I focused on fixing myself, I was always trying to fix myself, but I'm the one that have kind of burnt my fingers off with all the things I've been touching. And now I'm trying to use these hands with these numb, broken fingers to try and piece myself back together. And it never really worked for me. It never got to the point of really changing my identity, my appetites, what I liked doing with my time. I was a massive gamer. I was a massive, grew up I watched Pulp Fiction with my, with one of the people raising me at age 10. Like, I've been exposed to violent media all my life, and it was part of my identity, like watching action movies. And now I just don't do it. Like, I don't have that appetite. And that transformation for me came with looking through myself through God's lens, right? And I think if we take this metaphor of a golden self, that a lot of people will find attractive or find accessible, what is that version of yourself when looked through by a perfect God, right? So the God that isn't in any way tied to me and myself, like he is looking at me, and there's a version of me that he wants me to be. And if I keep focused on that external perfection, of that external aspirational version of myself that he wants me to be, I'm completely bypassing all of my internal biases, all my internal base desires, all my human frailties, which I believe we're born with. So I don't buy into the whole, like, we're born as these perfect things and then we get traumatized. Like, I believe that we are born broken. That is my fundamental belief. And it's one of the reasons that I'm on my knees daily, metaphorically, and sometimes in reality. But like, I'm aware that I am constantly frail. Like, I'm vulnerable. I'm very vulnerable, and I need to keep focused on something much larger than myself. And I've found God to be that perfect thing that I can focus on and his will for my life. And then I've got an instruction manual that comes as a book, and I've got a, Holy Spirit, which works in my conscious. So there's a whole bunch of tools that I can use in that space. And that's what's really transformed me. So, that's the frame that out of everything that I've tried, and I've been into the Amazon jungle, and I've drunk all the things, and I've got all the, initiation rituals, and I've done the yoga teacher training, and I've done the 10-day silent meditation, and I've done the, journal 15,000 words, and I've acted like my inner child in workshops. I've done 10 years. I did 10, 15 years of that kind of self-work thing. And what got me to the point that I am now is really just surrendering to God. So I can't but mention that because it's what's changed my life.
Absolutely, absolutely. You mentioned things we were born with. I remember, I'm not sure where I read this. It said we're born with a couple of inborn fears. One is the fear of falling, and the other is a fear of loud sounds. That's what it was. So, like, there's a bam, there's something like, and you're
Mhm.
instantly like, what was that? And of course, falling, like you're on the edge. You don't. You want to be self-preserve, and self-preserving can fall into uh, the word uh, with a D, distraction. Just distract
Mhm.
is that to self-preserve. I'm going to distract myself, and I honestly don't believe that most people consciously think, "Oh, I'm feeling bad, therefore I'm going to pick up my phone and scroll through TikTok."
Yeah.
It's a subconscious
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, I think the irony there as well is that it's like it's a subconscious, but how it bubbles up in our consciousness is I deserve to. I've done 4 hours of work. I deserve. I've not looked at porn for a week. I deserve. And then there is that I again. It's like I deserve. I define what's okay, what's right and wrong. So that for me is I thought very interesting is that I would sit in my therapist's room and I'd be like, but I choose to get high because I like it. I like smoking. I want to smoke. And on the conscious level, I was completely convinced that I was choosing these behaviors. And it was only upon like a lot of reflection and really looking at it, be like, hold on, I choose the feeling that the action gives me, but there's a bigger cycle that I don't choose. Like there's a cyclical thing going on that's repeating over and over again. And I think that's the true cost of addiction is time.
Oh,
Time with kids, time with family, time with skill development, time with partners. Um, it's you lose your life. And I've got people close to me that came into recovery in their late 60s, early 70s. And it's like, whoa, 30, 40 years. Where
yeah,
did it go? You
yeah.
know?
Time, time. I call it burning days. I burnt countless days.
Yeah.
Uh, if I got to add all that time up, it would be some
Oof.
astronomical number.
Oh man. Oh man. Yeah.
But on getting back to more in solutions, so what are some of the things that the organization Be in Touch, like what are some of the things that you guys do? And I know that,
Yes.
yeah, what did
Yeah, the emphasis there really is on families. So, in terms of the solutions that are there, that's going to be specifically for parents who are looking to help their kids. So we've got guides on how to talk about pornography. We've got parental controls, which are an absolute must. We've got to be locking down our children's phones. We've got advice from a really great resource. And one of the primary places that I would go as a parent, excuse me, is a wonderful website called commonsensemedia.org. And what they do is that they give real age ratings because we have to understand that just like I was at 9 years old, I didn't have a choice about whether I wanted to watch pornography or not. It was so stimulating that my body went, you need more of this. This makes you feel alive and good. And it's stimulating you. And you've never felt more alive when you watch this thing. So you need more of this thing. So we can't let our children choose. And we need to throw out this narrative that the next generation is what they call digital natives. This is a a line that's touted by a lot of social media companies that are not concerned with your child's welfare, that children are digital natives and we are digital nomads, and we don't understand. No, not nomads. We just don't understand it the way that they do, and we should just, they'll figure it out. It's not true. Our children don't have fully formed brains. They are already more emotional than rational, and they are feeding the wrong area of their brain, and that means that they are not going to be able to deal with life when they are expected to. And we're seeing that more and more. I mean, the kids who are now 18, who are the ones that really got thrown to the wolves without any guidance because parents 10 years ago didn't have any idea about social media and all that stuff. They're the ones that are staying home. They're the ones that need safe spaces. They're the ones that can't deal with going out and getting a job. They're the ones that are very triggered all the time. And I'm not talking about being callous, and people have certain sensitivities. That's fine. But when there's a generalized vulnerability that comes from a lack of skills, society skills, financial skills, workplace skills, interpersonal skills, self-control skills, we've got an issue. So BeInTouch provides a lot of guides, resources, information to help parents with raising children in the age of technology.
That's absolutely fantastic. Desperately needed for sure. There is a book called, it'll come to my, that I read to my boys, and is a preemptive, proactive book to help prevent kids from getting addicted. It's called Good Pictures, Bad Pictures.
Yeah, that's a goodie.
Yeah, it's a great book, so I highly recommend that. And there's also a Good Pictures, Bad Pictures Junior, that is for an older kid, like maybe a teenager. But so what would you say though to someone that is beyond that, that is maybe older, that is listening right now?
Yeah, for sure. Let's go there. I would say information is your friend. You need to know a lot about pornography, and not by watching it. So there's a series called Brain Heart World from an organization called Fight the New Drug. And that series, it's about 45 minutes each. There's 3 of them. That will tell you everything about how pornography impacts your brain, this thing in here in your skull. It'll tell you everything about how it impacts your heart, so your relationships, and how you picture people, how you interact with them, how all of that stuff, and then the world. So you'll actually start learning about how the pornography industry is run, what it supports, what it does to the people that are engaged with it. There's another epic resource called The Butterfly Effect, which is the story of Pornhub. It's the story of the guy who started Pornhub and the decisions that he made and the ripple effects, the butterfly effects of that decision. And this journalist flies around the whole world, and he visits someone who killed him, well, the family of someone who killed himself in Japan. And he visits Venice Beach, where a lot of the content is filmed. And he visits Belgium, where the founder started his addiction to pornography, well, his relationship with pornography. So there's information, and then there's support. Relationship is the opposite of addiction. So if you're in a relationship now and you've got any desire for that relationship to go the next 6 months, you need to come clean to that person, and it's going to be awkward, and they're going to be hurt, and they're not going to understand, and they might leave. But if they do leave, the next person you're in a relationship with will stay. And you cannot hide this from the person you love or the person that you want to bond with. So you need to talk to someone about it. You need to talk to Eric about it. You need to talk to a counselor about it. You cannot beat this thing by itself. That is the number one lie of pornography. It tells you that you don't need anything else. And if you try and leave, it says you can't leave because nobody will love you and you're too broke, and all the lies that come with that. And you got to get that isolation chamber broken. You got to break that echo chamber. You got to throw a hammer at the hall of mirrors so that you can see through it to something else. So you have to tell someone, and then you got to ask for help. And as soon as you've changed that posture of your heart and you have the information in your head, then nothing can hold you back.
Well, Josh, that is the perfect place to start. Well put. So glad to have you here. If someone wants to reach out to you or learn more about your organization, how do they do that?
So it's BeInTouch. So BeIntouch. So it's BeInTouch. Be in touch with your kids. Be in touch with your family. .org. So it's an organization, and then .za, which is a South African kind of end to that URL. BeInTouch.org.za.
And I'll put the link to your website in the show notes. And again, thank you so much for being here. This has been awesome. And I like to close with this quote: "You are designed for accomplishment. You are engineered for success, and you are endowed with the seeds of greatness."
Are you struggling with porn or sex addiction? Then apply for a free strategy call with Eric today at powerfuleric.com.